Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about Google and Fitbit's merger because apparently it might be a human rights violation. I'm not kidding. This is coming from TechCrunch, and I thought this was absolutely fascinating and actually really interesting because I had not considered this a human rights issue before. Now, basically, human rights NGO Amnesty International has written to the European Union's competition regulator calling for Google's acquisition of the wearable fit maker Fitbit to actually be blocked unless meaningful safeguards can be basically put into that agreement and enforced. Now, basically, Google announced its intent to spend $2.1 billion to acquire Fitbit a year ago, but it has not gained regulatory approval for the deal in the EU just at this moment. Now, in a letter addressed essentially to the competition chief of the EU, Margrethe Vestager, Amnesty International wrote, and I quote, "The Commission must ensure that the merger does not proceed unless the two business enterprises can demonstrate that they have taken an adequate account of the human rights risks and implemented strong and meaningful safeguards that prevent and mitigate these risks in the future." So basically, how is this a human rights problem? Let me tell you exactly what they're talking about here. They are talking about data mining and data privacy violations because those are human rights violations. It's true. This is what they're talking about. And so, in a report last year, Amnesty International attacked the business model of both Google and Facebook, arguing that the surveillance giants, quote unquote, enable human rights harm at a population scale. Amnesty International also warns now that Google is incentivized to merge and aggregate data across its different platforms as a consequence of that surveillance-based business model. And this is true. Google, like Facebook and others, have reached into many different verticals. Google made a massive push, or attempt to a massive push, into healthcare as well, on top of just data mining everything we're doing, whether we're using their free Gmail, as hundreds of millions or maybe even billions of people do. And if you have an Android phone, you've got a Gmail account that's required. Not to mention searching and everything else. To continue, and I quote, "Google's business model incentivizes the company to continuously seek more data on more people across the online world and into the physical world. The merger with Fitbit is a clear example of this expansionist approach to data extraction, enabling the company to extend its data collection into the health and wearable sector. The sheer scale of the intrusion of Google's business model into our private lives is an unprecedented interference with our privacy and, in fact, has undermined the very essence of privacy." Now, Google's plan to essentially acquire Fitbit and its health tracking data has been stalled by EU regulators because they are now looking at the competition concerns of this, and their commission has also voiced concerns about the risk of Google locking other wearable device makers out of its Android mobile ecosystem. So right now, let's say you have a Samsung watch or whatever, it's using that Android mobile OS platform to integrate those kinds of things. But this is actually, I think, 100% correct. We have a very serious problem where we are the product and we get to use things for free, and then they data mine us. Facebook obviously has been data mining us in very specific ways, as we have been posting our personal and thoughts and opinions into our own personal town halls that they will data mine for advertising, for psychological studies, Cambridge Analytica, and basically allowing that data to be scraped continuously over the years, to the point where researchers have found over 100,000 databases around the globe stored mostly on various Amazon Web Services of Facebook user data that has been taken from Facebook and given to third parties. Google has been basically honing this entire data mining platform in various ways. They gave you Google Voice for free so that they could essentially listen to any voicemails you got, so that they could improve their voice recognition system. They've built a massive facial recognition system like Facebook has. As I mentioned earlier, they have been moving very heavily into medical data retention and storage, and were bidding even the U.S. government on the federal to be basically that federal provider for the healthcare, not to mention various businesses across the globe. So this just, I think, basically speaks to what a lot of us really don't understand, is that we are in fact the product. We don't know what is happening with our data. And I equate this in a very similar manner to things like the DNA collection agencies. In other words, oh, hey, send in your DNA and we'll tell you, what possible genetic diseases you have, who you're related to. Were you also part of the royal family 800 years ago? We might be able to tell you those kinds of things. But at that point, you are giving up something that you really can't get back. And your family potentially around you is giving that up, even if you don't. With Google, it's the same thing. That Fitbit, that smart information that they are storing, analyzing, all of this can help them build a health profile on you in a way that is, quite frankly, none of their business. This is what we're talking about here, and this is what Amnesty International has been essentially railing against for years, and I'm glad they're out there doing these kinds of things. There's a lot of countries out there where we don't have a lot of recourse on how we're storing our data. And while the EU is excellent with it thanks to the GDPR and giving their citizens legal recourse, the US is not as good. We don't have that legal recourse unless you're in California, or biometrics in Illinois, or some businesses in New York under their SHIELD program. We don't have something universal that allows us basically a constitutional right to say what is mine is private, because I know I need a smartphone. I know I need the internet. I know I need these things to actually survive and succeed in society. But now they're taking the data on top of it. And I think that's something that we really don't talk about nearly enough. And so just FYI, if you have a Fitbit, understand that through this merger, if it goes through, Google may know everything about you, not just your search habits, your email, your voice recognition, your facial recognition, and everything else. They may now have your health data in a way that you weren't expecting them to. And what can they do with that? I think that's something we need to explore. And that's a question that I think we should all be talking about. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.